I want to talk to you tonight about a resignation that happened 36 hours ago and has sent shockwaves through the Israeli intelligence community, the defense establishment, and the political leadership in Jerusalem. David Barnea, the director of Mossad since 2021, submitted his resignation to Prime Minister Netanyahu yesterday morning, following what Israeli sources are describing as a catastrophic intelligence failure related to a covert operation inside Iran. This is not a routine leadership transition. This is not retirement. This is a forced departure after an operation went so wrong that it compromised Israeli assets, exposed intelligence networks, and handed Iran a propaganda and operational victory that will reverberate for years. I am looking at reporting from multiple Israeli media outlets, including Haaretz, the Times of Israel, and Channel 12 News, all of which published stories within hours of each other yesterday afternoon detailing the resignation. What these reports reveal, and what the Israeli government is desperately trying to suppress, is that Mossad conducted a sabotage operation targeting Iranian nuclear facilities in Natanz approximately 6 weeks ago. The operation was detected. Iranian intelligence was waiting, and instead of disrupting Iran's nuclear program, the operation resulted in the capture of Israeli operatives, the exposure of a regional intelligence network that took decades to build, and the death of at least 2 Mossad officers. In the next 22 minutes, I am going to walk you through exactly what happened during this operation, why it failed so spectacularly, how Iran turned it into an intelligence coup, and why David Barnea's resignation signals a crisis inside Israel's most secretive and capable intelligence service. This is not just about one operation. This is about the erosion of Mossad's operational security, the penetration of Israeli intelligence by Iranian counterintelligence, and the strategic consequences when covert action fails in the most public way possible. Subscribe now if you have not already, because what we are about to discuss is based on leaks from inside the Israeli defense establishment, and you are not getting this level of detail anywhere else. Let's start with what we know about the operation, because piecing together these details requires synthesizing information from Israeli leaks, Iranian state media, and independent intelligence analysis. In early March 2026, Mossad activated a long-dormant network inside Iran to conduct a sabotage operation at the Natanz nuclear facility, the centerpiece of Iran's uranium enrichment program. Natanz is located approximately 250 kilometers south of Tehran and houses thousands of centrifuges used to enrich uranium. It has been the target of multiple Israeli operations over the past 2 decades, including the Stuxnet cyber attack in 2010 and physical explosions in 2020 and 2021 that damaged centrifuge production facilities. According to Israeli sources who spoke to Haaretz on condition of anonymity, the March operation was designed to introduce malware into Natanz's control systems and simultaneously sabotage electrical infrastructure that powers the centrifuge cascades. The malware component was similar to Stuxnet, but updated to bypass Iranian countermeasures that have been implemented since 2010. The physical sabotage component involved explosives placed inside electrical substations that supply power to the enrichment halls. The operation required a team of locally recruited assets, people who work inside or near the facility, have access to secure areas, and can operate without attracting suspicion. These are not Mossad officers. These are Iranian nationals, often recruited through years of cultivation, who provide intelligence and conduct operations on behalf of Israeli intelligence. Building these networks takes decades. Losing them takes hours. On March 18th, according to Iranian state media and subsequently confirmed by Israeli sources, Iranian intelligence arrested 11 individuals in connection with a plot to sabotage Natanz. Iranian broadcasts showed confessions, equipment, and detailed descriptions of the operation. The individuals arrested included engineers working at the facility, contractors with access to electrical infrastructure, and at least 2 individuals identified as foreign nationals with connections to Israeli intelligence services. Announcement number 1: the operation was compromised before it began. Iranian intelligence knew the operation was coming, knew who was involved, and allowed it to proceed just far enough to identify the entire network before shutting it down. And this matters more than anything else because it reveals that Mossad's operational security has been penetrated at a level that calls into question every covert operation Israel is currently running inside Iran. How did Iran know? There are 3 possibilities, and all of them are catastrophic for Israeli intelligence. First, electronic intercepts. If Mossad communications with assets inside Iran are being intercepted and decrypted by Iranian signals intelligence, then every message, every instruction, every coordination is compromised. Second, human penetration. If Iran has recruited a source inside Mossad or inside one of the intelligence units that support Mossad operations, then operational plans are being leaked directly to Tehran before they are even activated. Third, turned assets. If Iran identified members of the Israeli network inside Iran months or years ago and turned them into double agents, then Mossad has been feeding intelligence to Iran without knowing it. All three possibilities have precedent. The NSA documents leaked by Edward Snowden in 2013 revealed that Israeli intelligence communications were being intercepted by multiple nations, including adversaries. Human penetration of intelligence services is rare, but not unheard of. Aldrich Ames in the CIA, Kim Philby in MI6. These cases demonstrate that even the most secure organizations can be compromised. And turned assets are a core component of counterintelligence operations. Iran's Ministry of Intelligence has decades of experience running double agent operations against foreign services. Dr. Yossi Melman, one of Israel's most respected intelligence correspondents, wrote in an analysis published yesterday, and I am quoting directly, "The Natanz operation represents the most significant operational failure for Mossad in more than a decade." The fact that Iranian intelligence was able to identify, monitor, and arrest an entire network suggests a level of counterintelligence capability that Israel has underestimated. The operational consequences are devastating. 11 individuals arrested means 11 sources lost. But it also means everyone those individuals knew, everyone they contacted, everyone they reported to, is now under suspicion. Iranian counterintelligence will be reverse engineering the entire network, identifying communication methods, analyzing patterns, and hunting for additional assets. Every Israeli intelligence operation inside Iran is now at risk. Received. That is announcement number 1. Now here is where the situation escalates from operational failure to strategic crisis. The Iranian response was not just arrests. It was a propaganda operation designed to humiliate Mossad and demonstrate to the world that Israel's vaunted intelligence capabilities are not as omnipotent as their reputation suggests. Announcement number 2. Iran broadcasted confessions, displayed equipment, and released operational details that exposed how Mossad recruits, trains, and manages assets inside Iran. This is the part that forces Barnea to resign and represents a generational setback for Israeli intelligence operations in the region. Within 72 hours of the arrests, Iranian state television aired a special program titled Exposing the Zionist Network. The broadcast included interviews with the arrested individuals, several of whom appeared to confess to working for Israeli intelligence. The confessions, whether coerced or not, included detailed descriptions of how they were recruited, how they communicated with handlers, how they received instructions and equipment, and how they were compensated. One individual, identified as an electrical engineer at Natanz, described being approached online through an encrypted messaging platform, offered financial incentives to provide facility layouts, and eventually recruited to plant monitoring devices inside secure areas. Another individual, identified as a contractor, described receiving packages containing explosives disguised as electrical equipment and instructions on where to place them inside substations. The broadcast also showed physical evidence: laptops, encrypted communication devices, fake identification documents, financial records showing transfers from accounts linked to Israeli front companies, and photographs of Mossad officers who allegedly served as handlers. Whether all of this evidence is authentic or partially fabricated is irrelevant. The operational methodology described in these confessions matches known Mossad recruitment and operational patterns closely enough that every intelligence service watching, and they are all watching, now has a clearer picture of how Israel operates inside Iran. Stay with me because this is where the implications extend beyond Iran and become a crisis for Israeli intelligence operations globally. If Iran can expose Mossad networks inside Iran, what does that mean for operations in Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, Yemen, and across the Middle East? How many other networks are using similar communication methods, similar recruitment patterns, similar operational security protocols that are now compromised? Announcement number 3, David Barnea's resignation is not just about one failed operation. It is a recognition that Mossad's operational dominance in the region is eroding, and that the intelligence service needs fundamental restructuring to adapt to adversaries who have learned how Israel operates. Barnea took over as Mossad director in June 2021, replacing Yossi Cohen. His tenure has been marked by several high-profile successes, including the assassination of Iranian nuclear scientist Mohsen Fakhrizadeh in 2020 before he became director, but which he helped plan, ongoing operations against Hezbollah leadership and intelligence gathering that supported strikes on Iranian weapons facilities in Syria. But it has also been marked by failures. The failure to predict the scope and coordination of the October 7th attacks by Hamas in 2023, which Israeli intelligence officials later admitted was a catastrophic breakdown, and now the Natanz operation, which represents an even deeper failure because it exposes systemic vulnerabilities rather than a single intelligence miss. According to sources within the Israeli defense establishment who spoke to Channel 12 News, Barnea submitted his resignation after a classified briefing to the cabinet where he acknowledged that Mossad's operational security inside Iran had been compromised and that Iranian counterintelligence capabilities had advanced beyond Israeli expectations. The briefing reportedly included assessments that multiple ongoing operations inside Iran and across the region were at risk and that a comprehensive review of operational protocols was necessary. Netanyahu initially resisted accepting the resignation, according to the same sources, because replacing the Mossad director during an active intelligence crisis creates its own risks. But Barnea insisted. The resignation was framed publicly as personal reasons, a standard cover for forced departures in intelligence circles. But the timing and the context make the real reason clear. This is accountability for failure at the highest level. Think carefully about what this represents. Mossad is not just another intelligence service. It is Israel's primary instrument for covert action against existential threats. Its operations have shaped the security landscape of the Middle East for 70 years. The perception of Mossad as omniscient, capable of reaching anyone anywhere, is itself a strategic asset because it deters adversaries and forces them to operate with the assumption that Israel is always watching. That perception is built on decades of successful operations. One failure, even a significant one, can be absorbed. But when the director resigns after an operation that exposed an entire network and demonstrated that Iran can penetrate Israeli intelligence, that perception cracks. Iran knows this. The propaganda broadcasts were not designed for domestic consumption. They were designed for regional audiences. The message to Hezbollah, to Hamas, to militias in Iraq and Yemen is clear. Mossad is not invincible. Their networks can be rolled up. Their operations can be detected. Resistance is not futile. That message matters because it emboldens adversaries and makes recruitment more difficult. If you are an Iranian scientist considering cooperating with Mossad, this operation demonstrates that Iran can find you. If you are a Hezbollah operative debating whether to provide intelligence to Israel, this operation shows that Israeli intelligence cannot protect you. This pattern has historical precedent, and the lesson is always the same. Let me take you back to 1985. The CIA was running intelligence operations inside the Soviet Union through a network of recruited assets. One of those assets was Aldrich Ames, a CIA officer who had been recruited by the KGB. Ames provided the Soviets with the identities of every CIA asset inside Russia. Between 1985 and 1986, the KGB arrested more than 10 CIA sources. Several were executed. The CIA's intelligence collection inside the Soviet Union collapsed. It took years to rebuild those capabilities, and the agency never fully recovered its operational position inside Russia. Israel is not facing an Aldrich Ames scenario yet, but the Natanz operation demonstrates that Iran has developed counterintelligence capabilities sophisticated enough to penetrate Israeli networks, and that capability represents an existential threat to Israel's intelligence dominance. If Mossad cannot operate securely inside Iran, it cannot gather the intelligence necessary to track Iran's nuclear program, identify targets for military strikes, or disrupt weapons development. Without that intelligence, Israel's military options become reactive rather than preventive. That is a strategic shift. So where does this leave us? Let me give you 3 scenarios because the next 6 to 12 months will determine how Israel responds to this crisis and whether Mossad can recover its operational edge. Path 1: Comprehensive restructuring. Mossad suspends active operations inside Iran for 6 to 12 months, conducts an internal review of all communication protocols, recruitment methods, and operational security procedures, and rebuilds intelligence networks from the ground up with new protocols designed to counter Iranian counterintelligence capabilities. This is the safest path, but it creates a massive intelligence gap during a critical period when Iran is advancing its nuclear program. Likelihood 40%, operationally necessary, but politically difficult because it requires admitting the scale of the compromise. Path 2: Accelerated military action. Israel concludes that covert operations are no longer viable and shifts to overt military strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities. Without reliable intelligence from inside Iran, Israel relies on satellite imagery, signals intelligence, and periodic strikes to delay the program rather than infiltrate and sabotage it. This escalates the conflict but removes the dependency on compromised networks. Likelihood 35%. Netanyahu's government has repeatedly signaled willingness to strike Iran directly if covert options fail. Path 3: Strategic adaptation. Israel accepts that Mossad's operational supremacy inside Iran is over and shifts resources to other theaters where Israeli intelligence still has advantages: Syria, Lebanon, Iraq. Israel increases intelligence sharing with the United States and European allies to compensate for lost capabilities inside Iran. The focus shifts from disrupting Iran's nuclear program to managing its regional influence. Likelihood 25%. Requires Israel to accept strategic constraints that directly threaten its security. I think we are heading toward a combination of Path 1 and Path 2. Mossad will attempt to rebuild its networks, but that process takes years. In the meantime, Israel will rely more heavily on military strikes and will pressure the United States to take a more aggressive posture toward Iran. The intelligence failure makes military escalation more likely because Israel no longer trusts its ability to monitor and disrupt Iran's program through covert action. Here are the questions I want you to think about. First, if Mossad can be penetrated by Iranian counterintelligence, what does that mean for intelligence operations by other Western services in the region? Second, how does this failure change Israel's calculations about when and how to strike Iranian nuclear facilities? Third, what does Barnea's resignation signal to Israeli allies about the state of Israel's intelligence capabilities? Tell me in the comments whether you think Israel will strike Iran directly now that covert operations have failed. Tell me if you believe Iran has penetrated other Israeli intelligence networks beyond this one operation. Tell me how you think Netanyahu rebuilds Mossad's credibility after this failure. We will keep tracking every development, every resignation, every intelligence leak as this situation evolves. That is what this channel does. Subscribe now. Share this analysis with everyone trying to understand why the resignation of an intelligence chief matters more than most military operations. Turn on notifications because the fallout from this failure is still unfolding, and we will see you in the next briefing.